I'm going to share with you an article I read back in 2017 that gave me an idea, and I hope it'll give you an idea of how cyclical life is. It compares the conditions that the silent generation lived through, those who were teenagers and in their 20s during World War II, and the people that fought in World War II. It looks at economic conditions, political conditions, social conditions, that sort of thing. Very broad macro analysis of the experiences that you're going through. So by all means, I'm not comparing myself to those who fought in World War II, but when you read it, it makes sense in terms of economic conditions, political conditions, social conditions in a very broad, general way. And it's interesting how you can compare the two, and you can go back through the last 1500 years, say, and look and see the same cycle repeating itself, and it generally coincides with people's lifespan at the time, which is varying between sort of 60 and 80 years or so during that time period. We'll generally go through booms and busts, and if you tie that into long-term debt cycles, which is an interesting topic to look up, and I'll link an article on that. They tend to last 70 years, so we tend to go through periods of being seriously in debt as a Western economy, but now more as a global economy. We have so much interaction with other countries in the way that we didn't do 80 years ago. Even it was very much much more arm's length interaction. So it's more an explanation of the Western society and economy. But if you look back through history, you can see this cycle of mass indebtedness, mass liquidity, and that sort of back and forth and that ebb and flow. And that tends to coincide with war and people's lifespans and pandemics, which was interesting because back in 2017 there was this idea that we were due for a pandemic and due for a war. So I didn't really put much stock into the pandemic idea, but that seems to have come true. The other thing that comes about is the idea of, because of the long-term debt cycle, the stage that we're in is similar to the stage that we were in when we went through World War II. So the conditions that led to World War II are similar to conditions we're seeing now, and now we're starting to see civil unrest, which is something I was talking about a couple of years ago, and that's happening all over America, in the UK and Europe to a lesser extent. Again, sort of this disparity between rich and poor, the rise of popular leaders, big figures with big followings, and that's on both sides of the political spectrum. A sort of loss of faith in the political and economic systems. The value of cash is plummeting because of the measures taken to protect the economy from the coronavirus. A lot of people are putting stock into gold. That's what happened back in World War II with Nazi Germany. They experienced hyperinflation and people wanted gold. If you go and sort of read into the Holocaust and what that was about, a big motivation behind it was basically like a gold harvesting factory. It was a way of displacing people from society, seizing their wealth and just slaughtering them was a big part of it, as well as all the other things that went on as part of that. But it's important to look at that and see how easily that could come about again with the same conditions. It's already happened before, it can happen again. It's eerily similar to what I'm trying to say. And to me, it all ties back to economic conditions, which then influence political conditions, social conditions, people's behaviour. And it all started with this article, this idea, and what I'm seeing is it coming true. I'm following it quite closely, and I think it's something worth bearing in mind. I'll keep sort of saying it. Hopefully I'm just being crazy and it's completely unfounded fear, but it's coming true as I thought it would do, based on what I've read. It isn't something that I've come up with myself, it's just been things that I've been reading. And if you keep an eye on what's going on, this this isn't anything new. This is something that can be plotted throughout history, can be tracked, and you can tell this is what's going to happen in the future. So like I say, the millennial generation, my generation, as we come of age, and maybe those a bit younger than us, due to experience war, conflict, economic divide, a long period of painful recovery, like the depression of the 1930s, a lot of things like that to come. It might sound crazy, but I felt like I was crazy talking about conflict and pandemics and things back in 2017, 2018. But it's just because I read this article and started looking into it, and I recommend you do the same. I think it's something worth bearing in mind, having to think about whether you can cope in a world that looks drastically different from the world we live in today, in a world where the society as we know it is completely upheaved. In a world where we return to conditions that are somewhat like that we lived through 80 years ago or so, because it's possible. It's a relatively short period of time that we've had in the West, this amazing sort of period of silence and peace, and relatively been undisturbed. Obviously there's an awful lot of other things going on around the world, but for us in England, say, have a fairly stable society, and that's starting to become less and less apparent. And just because if you go to make an investment, they say that past performance doesn't guarantee future success, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Just because the last 60 years have been okay, look back anywhere beyond that, there's been hundreds of years of conflict, of relative volatility and unpredictable events going on in our history, and how we've had to live through most of our time up to now as a human race. So just because the last 60 years have been stable and we could rely on a model of being able to sort of get a job, buy a house, have kids and all that sort of stuff, it doesn't mean that that's going to continue forever. And it's a very real possibility that things might change in a big way, and that could be soon. I think it's just important to bear in mind. Hopefully I'm wrong, hopefully it's all fine and we'll just live into old age and we'll be fine and nothing will happen, but I personally sort of doubt that more and more. So good luck.